In you, Lord, I have taken refuge, let me never be put to shame, deliver me in your righteousness. Here, the first person I refers to the Messiah Jesus who is coming to this earth in the future. In other words, it is expressed as if the Messiah Jesus has already come to this earth in a physical body and is hanging on the cross, making a plea. No, David is declaring the passion of the Messiah Jesus in the form of a prayer, as if he himself were that Messiah Jesus. In short, when the Messiah Jesus comes to this earth, he will die by shedding his blood on the cross. Then, the Messiah Jesus will plead on that cross as follows. Here, taking refuge in you implies the situation of the Messiah Jesus suffering on the cross. Then, at that time, the Messiah Jesus will take refuge in God. This implies that the Messiah Jesus did not hang on the cross because he had some sin, but because there was some intent, purpose, or plan. Also, this does not mean that there is any break in the relationship or a gap between the Messiah Jesus and God, rather, it adds intimacy and trust. Also, being put to shame here refers to God ignoring the Messiah Jesus, turning away from him, and not responding to his plea. Of course, the appearance at that time will seem as if God is ignoring the Messiah Jesus hanging on the cross, turning away from him, and not responding to his plea. However, God will not put the Messiah Jesus to shame forever. Also, your righteousness here may refer to the attributes of God overflowing with mercy, compassion, and love. However, this is God's righteousness, implying the intent and purpose of God sending the Messiah Jesus to this earth and letting him die by shedding his blood on the cross. In short, God's intent and purpose in letting the Messiah Jesus die by shedding his blood on the cross is to remove all sins of everyone who believes in this and to call them righteous freely. Therefore, even for this sake, he is asking God to save the Messiah Jesus himself from that death on the cross. How about it? However, in the sense that the prayer of the Messiah Jesus is surely fulfilled and accomplished, it can also be called a prophetic declaration. In short, in the future, the Messiah Jesus himself will die by shedding his blood on that cross. However, God will not put the Messiah Jesus himself to shame forever, and even for the sake of God's righteousness, he will surely save him. Isn't it so? If God were not to make the Messiah Jesus himself come back to life from that death on the cross, the work of the Messiah Jesus for that righteousness of God would end in failure. Therefore, God will surely make the Messiah Jesus himself come back to life from death on the cross.